everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to be back with y'all. I took a break because I wasn't feeling well, and that is why today I want to talk about the trauma of growing up broke. I have my notes written down. This video that I'm gonna look at a little bit more than usual because it's like a story time situation. It's a little different than what I normally talk about, but if you think about it, it's the same because it's about money and financial literacy and kind of maybe the reason why I care about this topic so much. So, like I said, I have been literally fighting for my life for the last 2 weeks. It came out of nowhere, like most sicknesses do, and I realized that a lot of trauma came back. And when you're sick, you have nothing else to do, so all you do is try to recover, normally probably by yourself, and you have a lot of time to think. And the thoughts that were coming up in my head were thoughts that I did not like, and I realized that they were a little traumatizing. And the trauma part that really got to me mentally was that like I put myself in a bad situation. And I'm explaining why, but I left myself vulnerable and it wasn't necessary. And I did it because I based it on whether I had enough money, and I decided that I didn't have enough money, so then I left myself in a bad situation. And I think that's really messed up. And I'm like, how could you do that to yourself? You work so hard to be good with money, but what's the point if you hurt yourself in the process? I am my best asset. So why did I do that? And it's because I've been doing this my whole life, right? And I realized that I have to find a way to be better because this is counterproductive. None of this works if I'm dead and gone. None of this works. So I need to release control a little bit on my whole like zeal for money and like being good with it and saving it. I need to release some control of that. And the reason why I was put in this situation is decisions. As y'all know, I quit my job in June, and in July was the first time that I didn't have insurance, and so I looked into getting Obamacare because that was a goal that I had. I always knew that I was gonna have to get Obamacare, so I went. And to my surprise, Obamacare was a lot more expensive than I thought it was gonna be. It was $400, and I was like, I was hoping it was $200. $400 is too steep for me. 400 times 5, because it would have started in August, was $2,000, and I told myself I couldn't afford it, and I honestly could have. But whatever, it's done. I was like, I'm young, I'm healthy. I'm not as young as I used to be, but I'm still young. And January 1st, I can push back doctor's appointments and continue as scheduled, right? Okay, fine. Everything was fine until October. In October, what happened is that I got sick. And I automatically went to the worst case scenario, which was, I thought it was cancer. And my family's like, girl, it's not cancer. But I'm like, how do you know? Are you a doctor? I need an MRI. So I'm like, I put myself in a bad situation. Okay. I can go and get private insurance now. Private insurance, I looked into it. Instead of it being $400, it was $600. It wasn't going to start until November. Well, actually, would have been today. So I would have had to wait and be scared to think, do I have cancer? Do I not have cancer for 2 weeks? But I could have called my doctors and been seen and asked for an MRI and blood test to rule it out. So instead of it being $2,000, it would have been $1,200, and I was willing to do that, right? And I set up an appointment with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and it would have been Aetna, and it would have been United Healthcare until I found something that had all my doctors' blase. I had time, whatever. Then a few days went by, and I realized, I mean, it could still be cancer because it's not ruled out. However, it was like upper respiratory, and I'm like, okay. And I thought I could deal with it. I was hoping it was viral, but day 2.5, I was like, I am dying. I need to go see a doctor. So I went to an urgent care, begrudgingly, but I was like, at this point, like, I feel like I'm dying. I need to get a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Went to the doctor. He's an awesome doctor, this urgent care that I go to. Shout out to Dr. Melly. And I had not one, but 2. I had the flu, and I had like a bacterial infection. That was more expensive than it should have been too, but that's what I get. It's my fault. So now I'm in a situation where it's just like, it made me think I'm recovering. It brought my mind back to this girl's TikTok that I saw maybe about 2 weeks before this even happened. And she was talking about how people get mad at her when she says she doesn't want kids. And she says she doesn't want to have kids because she wants to wait until she's in a good financial position to have the kids. And that makes sense. But then somebody replied, oh, you're saying poor people can't have kids. And she's like, no, it's not that I'm saying poor people can't have kids, because maybe that's going to happen until the end of time. But what she was saying is, if you know the situation's bad and you knew how you grew up, why would you do that on purpose? Maybe you can make a plan so that you're in a better situation. I think that's what she wanted to do. And she mentioned how, to this day, the other day, she went into her home and all the lights were off. And she ran, she said she sprinted to turn them on, because to this day, when all the lights are off in her home, it takes her back to when lights were off in her home as a child. And she mentioned that maybe someone else in her home turned the lights off, unbeknown to them that that was a trigger for her. And I was just like, wow, this lady is grown and she can't have all the lights off in her house. She has to have at least one on so that when she comes home, she doesn't think about it. And yeah, that's traumatizing. So she was dealing for trauma, and I was like, I felt your pain. I felt her pain. When I was growing up, my lights were off like I think 2 to 3 times. I don't remember. It was a long time ago, but it's a sucky situation. It's really sucky. So for context purposes, like I grew up in a single parents home, and it was my mom, my brother, and myself. And it's no different than a lot of stories with single family homes where there's just not a lot of extra money lying around. But my mom always tended to have better than average jobs. But if you have better than average jobs and you have 2 young kids and no financial support from the father, like it don't matter. There's not going to be a lot of money left over, right? And most of the years were good, and we were happy, and I had the best childhood. But like, if there's not enough money, sometimes there's not enough money. And there were some years most years were good, but there were some years, like let's say 2 or 3 years that were bad. And they weren't back to back, thank God, but there were just some years where we just came up short, right? And to sum it up, I just always have, this is where my trauma is, I always have this sentence that runs in my mind subconsciously or something, I'll say it consciously, that I don't have money for that. Insert whatever that is, I just don't have money for that. And one of the reasons I think is because, for whatever reason, my mom, love her to death, I will do anything for her. She is superwoman, but she paid for our education because that's what she valued, right? It was a good value because I got the best education, like to this day. What people are getting now, I'm just like, I learned this in high school, whatever. However, the consequence of that is that I went to school with rich kids, right? So when you go to school with rich kids, you see what they have and what you don't have. And I never really let it press me too much because I had things that money could buy that they did not have. So I was like, thank you, Lord, for that. However, when you're coming of age and they have material things that you don't have, or even like, especially like when SATs were coming and they were able to get tutored, or they got cars, or nose jobs, baby. Nose jobs were the original BBL in South Florida. But yeah, it was just like, oh wow, like I can't even conceive, like I don't have the money for that. The less expensive things and the thousands and thousands of dollars of things. So I find now, I still say that one sentence is, I don't have the money for that. But it sucks because when I quit my job, it's like, I don't have health insurance now. And what I should have done was just bit the bullet and spent the money. And I'm just growing weary of this feeling. So I need to get rid of it. I'm not gonna go to therapy at the moment. So what do? I think I just need to make it about face. I'm no longer gonna be stingy with my budget and things that are absolutely invaluable to me. Number one being health insurance. Like I can't believe my dumb ass just decided to not go with health insurance. And I'm still not insured, but we're getting to the new year. I think today is November 1st, so I think Obamacare is open, so I might do that tomorrow. However, like I'm going to budget for it every year from now on. Number two, I didn't get a flu shot. I've been getting flu shots since 2009 when I started my graduate program, and it was required. So from 2009 to 2022, every year. And the 1 year I don't get it, I get that with a double. Like, no one's to blame necessarily. And maybe it's just a lesson I needed to learn. I don't know. Sometimes there's no one to blame, but I'm tired of it and I have to change. Because my motto for 2024 at least is being cheap is expensive. Being cheap is expensive. So I'm gonna spend that extra $50 sometimes. Sometimes I'm gonna spend that extra $100 for the peace of mind because mentally I went through some bad stuff this last week, like slight depression. And I'm not 100% out of it. I'm like 90% out of it. But yeah, and I did that to myself. And it's a learning experience, but I've learned that my balance is not as good as I thought it was. And I think I know more. I think I know above average of most people as far as like how money works and financial literacy, but it just shows me that I have a lot to learn. And part of that is just like not caring so much about money. You can spend it, especially if it's something of value, you need to spend it. And my action plan is preparing my 2024 budget now, like getting into it. I'm going to add money for health insurance, going to add money for things that happen every year that I wasn't prepared for this year, like Christmas. Christmas happens every year, so why am I not prepared? I will be prepared for 2024. Does that mean there are some things that I'm gonna have to take out and have hard conversations with myself? Yes, but some of those things are gonna be things that are not as valuable as health insurance and they're not as valuable as Christmas and social events. I need to build some money in for social events. That I could do without it, I can't, because if you're depressed, none of this matters either. So that's my story about how like being growing up broke can be traumatic, and how I'm trying to figure my way out of it. Would love to know if anybody else has an account maybe similar or different. Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for sticking around for this story time, and I hope to see y'all next time. Take care.